An old man with silver hair walks toward a dragon, certain that the gods are on his side. His name is Dennis. The Smallfolk call him Silver Dennis for that pale Valyrian hair, and he has told anyone who would listen that the blood of old kings runs in his veins, that he is descended from a bastard son of Magor, the Cruel himself. He has brought his sons to watch. He is certain the beast will know him for what he is. The dragon is Sheepstealer, mud-brown, ugly, wild, and he has killed more men this day than any of his kind. Dennis reaches up, and Sheepstealer takes his arm off at the shoulder. His sons rush to him, hands pressed to the wound, and out of the smoke above them falls a greater shadow, black as coal, ancient, hungry. The cannibal has come down to feed. By the time it lifts away, there is no Dennis, and there are no sons. The right blood, the right hair, the right name. None of it mattered at all. Grandmeister Munkun would call this day the sowing of the seeds. Those who lived through it, counting their dead, gave it a truer name, the Red Sowing. Welcome to Westeros Within, where the fires of history still burn. This is House of the Dragon, the true history. Episode 3, The Sowing of the Seeds. This is the day the dragons of Westeros were thrown open to fishwives' sons and a brown girl with a dead sheep, and the day the blacks armed the very people who would betray them. When last we stood in this story, the first fire had fallen, and it had fallen the wrong way. At Rook's Rest, the blacks had learned a brutal lesson. Princess Rhaenys, the queen who never was dead, and her red dragon Melis with her, burned out of the sky by Vhagar and Sunfire. King Aegon lay broken and hidden, his body half charred, and in the air above the realm, the one-eyed Prince Aemond and old Vhagar now flew unmatched. The blacks had lost the sky, and here was the cruel arithmetic of it. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra possessed dragons still, but dragons sleeping in the smoking caves of the Dragonmont, dragons with no one to ride them. Rook's Rest had proven the oldest truth of her house. A riderless dragon is only a beast in a cave. It wins no battles. It guards no skies. She had more dragons than riders. And that single deficit is the engine of everything you are about to see. Into that crisis stepped a young man with a desperate idea. Prince Jacaerys Velaryon, Rhaenyra's eldest son, her heir, rider of the dragon Vermax, the boy who had flown north to win Cregan Stark and the Swords of the North, who had won the Vale, and who now ruled Dragonstone in his mother's name. The blacks needed riders. Jacaerys went looking for them in the last place any lord would think to look. Among the Smallfolk, his reasoning was sound, and it was heresy. For more than a century, House Targaryen and House Velaryon had held Dragonstone and Driftmark, and for more than a century, their men had scattered their seed through the fishing villages and the wine sinks and the dockyards of those islands. Bastards, half-bloods, children with a drop of old Valyria in them and no name to show it. The realm had a word for such people, Dragonseeds. If even one of them carried enough of the blood, Jacaerys reasoned, then a dragon might let that one climb onto its back. Whose idea this truly was, the chroniclers cannot quite agree. Grandmeister Munkun, in his true telling, gives the credit plainly to Prince Jacaerys. The court fool, Mushroom, insists in his testimony that he was the one who whispered it first. We will lean toward Munkun. A fool always wants a seat at the table of history. But mark the tragedy that Munkun's version carries inside it. It was Jacaerys, Rhaenyra's eldest, her heir, who threw open the dragons of Westeros to the realm. And Jacaerys would not live to see a single thing it reaped. To bind the grieving sea snake back to the cause, Jacaerys made Lord Corlys Velaryon his mother's hand, and then he made the proclamation that would turn the feudal world on its head. The words are recorded almost exactly. Lands, riches, knighthood, to any man who could master a dragon. His sons would be ennobled, his daughters wed to lords. Think on what that meant to a people who had been born with nothing and expected to die with less. A fishwife's son could become a knight. A bastard could become a lord. A nobody from a Dragonstone hovel could found a noble house that would last 1,000 years. If only he could climb onto the back of a monster and live. And they came. They came in their dozens. Not only the Dragonseeds with their telltale silver hair and pale eyes, but a score of Rhaenyra's own household knights, men sworn to her service, among them Sir Steffon Darklyn of her own Queen's Guard. Squires came, scullions came, sailors and men-at-arms and mummers. Even 2 of Rhaenyra's own maidservants stepped forward. Anyone, highborn or low, willing to wager their life against a dragon for the chance of a name. But the dragons of the Dragonmont were not all alike, and the difference between them was the difference between a chance and a grave. There were 6 riderless dragons on Dragonstone, and to understand the slaughter, you must understand that they came in 2 kinds. 3 of them were castle-bred, hatched and raised among men, lairing close, accustomed to the smell and the sound of people. These 3 might, just might, suffer a new rider. The first was the greatest prize of all. Vermithor, the Bronze Fury. Once the Mount of Jacaerys, the old king himself, riderless for the better part of a century. Bronze and vast and ancient, the second largest and second oldest living dragon in all the world, behind only Vhagar. Whoever tamed Vermithor would command a weapon to rival anything the Greens could put in the sky. The second was Silverwing, silver-scaled, gentle, the most even-tempered of them all. Once the beloved mount of good Queen Alysanne, the old king's queen. And here is a detail to hold quietly, because it will ache later. Silverwing was Vermithor's mate. Where one coiled, the other was seldom far. The third was Seasmoke, pale gray, swift and lean, smaller than the others. Once the dragon of Sir Lenor Velaryon, Rhaenyra's first husband, the sea snake's dead son, riderless for years. Those were the 3 that offered hope. And then there were the other 3, the wild ones, the gray ghost, pale and shy, lairing in a smoking sea cave on the eastern face of the mountain, eating fish and fleeing the sight of men. He would never take a rider. Not then, not ever. The Cannibal, the oldest, the blackest, the most feared. He ate the dead. He ate the living. He ate other dragons and their hatchlings in their shells. No man ever tamed the Cannibal in this war or any other. You have already seen what he did to Silver Dennis and his sons, and Sheepstealer, mud-brown and ill-favored, near 80 years old, with a famous taste for mutton that gave him his name. Of all the wild dragons, Sheepstealer was the killer. The histories tell us plainly that in the sowing, Sheepstealer slew more would-be dragon riders than the other 3 dragons combined. Remember that. The brown beast killed more men than any other. Because of all 3 wild dragons, Sheepstealer is the only one that anyone would ever ride, and the one who finally rode him will be the last face you meet today. So the seeds climbed, and the second name was earned in fire. Most who reached for a dragon did not come back down. Lord Gormon Massey, a highborn lord, reached for Vermithor, the old king's bronze giant, and was burned alive for his ambition. Sir Steffon Darklyn, Rhaenyra's own sworn knight, a man of her queen's guard, reached for Seasmoke, the gentlest of the swift dragons, and was burned to death where he stood. And Silver Dennis, with his royal blood and his silver hair and his certainty, reached for Sheepstealer. And you know already how that ended. Here is the lesson the Red Sowing carved into the realm. A lord burned, a knight burned. A man who claimed the blood of Maegor the Cruel was torn apart. The dragons did not care about your name. They did not care about your birth. They chose on something no maester could see, and no lineage could promise. How many died, we are told, though we are told it by one man. Grand Maester Munchen, in his true telling, sets the count at 16 men dead, and 48 more burned or maimed. 16 dead, 48 ruined. The fool mushroom, never content to stand at the edge of a great event, claims in his testimony that he himself stepped forward that day, that he reached for the gentle Silverwing and was rebuffed. We may safely set Mushroom's heroics aside. A dwarf jester taming the good queen's dragon makes a fine tale for a feast. It makes poor history. But for all the dying, the seed did sprout. When the smoke cleared over the Dragonmont, 4 people who had climbed up as nobodies came back down as dragonriders, and not one of them was who the realm would have chosen. The first was a giant, Hugh Hammer. Hard Hugh, men called him. The base-born son of a common Dragonstone blacksmith, a man so vast and so strong that the histories say he could twist steel bars into torques with his bare hands. He carried a smith's warhammer because no ordinary sword suited a fist like his. And here is where we must be careful with the truth, against everything you may think you know. The book gives Hugh dark hair and a smith's soot-stained lowborn face. No silver, no Valyrian beauty. His claim to dragon's blood was only a claim, suspected and never proven. And yet, when this dark-haired bastard of the Forge walked up to Vermithor, the old king's own dragon, the second greatest beast alive, Vermithor took him. The lowest man in the yard had claimed the highest dragon in it, and riding a king's dragon began, almost at once, to feed a dangerous dream behind Hugh's eyes. We will say no more of it today. Only hold this in your memory, as a knife held flat beneath a cloak. A prophecy began to spread among his followers, that when the hammer should fall upon the dragon, a new king would arise, and none would stand before him. Remember the hammer. We will come back to it, in a town called Tumbleton. The second was a drunkard, Ulf the White, a low-born man-at-arms of the wine sinks, a glutton and a sot who claimed some nameless Targaryen prince had fathered him. Unlike Hugh, Ulf actually had the look, white hair, the pale eyes, the Valyrian cast to his face. But there was nothing heroic in how he won his dragon. By the recorded telling, Ulf did not bravely stride up to a beast at all. He blundered about in the confusion, half drunk as ever, and simply stumbled upon Silverwing, good Queen Alysanne's gentle mount, who suffered him to climb on before he had even properly tried. So the most fearsome dragons of the age now answered to a smith's bastard and a drunk who tripped over his prize. And the two of them rode a mated pair, Vermithor and Silverwing, who had coiled together since the days of the old king. The third had a name worth defending, Addam of Hull. Born in a driftmark dockyard, raised among the shipwrights with his younger brother Alan, the boys of a captain woman called Merilda, the Mouse. And Addam, unlike the others, looked every inch a dragon's son. Silver hair, deep purple eyes, the mark plain on his face. When Addam came to Seasmoke, Lenor Velaryon's old riderless dragon, The beast accepted him as though it had been waiting. And the romantics of the realm read the obvious into it. The dead rider's son, come home at last to his father's dragon. Whose son Addam truly was, the chroniclers will quarrel over to this very day. His mother always swore his father was the late Sir Rhaenyra, and Muncan and Septon Eustace both believed her. Mushroom tells a saltier tale, that the true father was old Corlys himself, the sea snake, the boy a secret kept to spare the wrath of Corlys's fierce wife. The compiler of these histories declines to settle it, and so will we. That mystery is a whole tale of its own. What matters today is this. The sea snake stood before a hostile court and called the Hull boys true Velaryons, and Rhaenyra granted it. Addam of Hull, Dragonseed and bastard, became Sir Addam Velaryon, knighted, legitimized, and named heir to Driftmark. His brother Alan was raised up beside him. A dragon had bought a boy a name, and a house, and a future. For Addam, alone of the four, the reward landed clean. And the fourth was a skinny brown girl, and she changed everything. They called her Nettles. Nettie, a dragon seed of Dragonstone, lowborn, no house, no lands, 16 years old. And she was the opposite of everything a dragon rider was supposed to be. The histories do not flatter her. Brown skin, black hair, brown eyes, crooked teeth, a slit and scarred nose, a foul mouth on her. The compiler says flatly that she could not be called pretty. A skinny brown girl on a skinny brown dragon. No silver hair, no purple eyes, no Valyrian name. And here is the dangerous part, the part the Mesters could never explain away. The book tells us Nettles had no known Valyrian ancestry at all. By every rule the Targaryens had taught the world, this girl should not have been able to ride anything. She took the deadliest wild dragon on the island, and she did it in a way no one else had even thought to try. The other seeds had walked up to a dragon and lived or died on the spot. A single roll of the dice. Nettles refused the dice entirely. Every dawn, she rose before the others, and she slit the throat of a sheep. And she dragged that fresh-killed mutton out to the place where Sheepstealer laired, the brown beast with the famous hunger. And she laid it down, and she waited. Day after day. A dead sheep, laid before a monster, and a girl who would not flinch, until the wild dragon came to expect her, then to suffer her near, and at the last to bear her. No blood summons, no birthright, no ancient creed, just patience and meat, and a girl with nothing to lose, taming the one wild dragon that no blood and no name could ever claim. Now hold the two pictures side by side, the way the history forces you to. Silver Dennis, old royal blood, the right silver hair, certain the gods owed him a dragon, reached for Sheepstealer and was torn apart and devoured. And a brown girl with no blood and no name walked up to the very same beast and won it with a dead sheep and a steady nerve. Which leaves a question the maesters of the Citadel have never been able to answer. And neither can I. Was Nettles a true dragon seed, carrying some hidden drop of old Valyria no one could trace? Or did she prove, in front of the whole realm, that the great secret of House Targaryen was no secret of blood at all? That a dragon could be won by cunning and patience, by anyone bold enough to try? The book does not answer it. It only lays the question down, like a sheep before a sleeping dragon, and leaves it there. So Rhaenyra had her riders. 4 dragons that had been beasts in caves were monsters in her service now. And almost at once, the rewards began to curdle. Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White were both knighted and granted lands upon Driftmark, and both of them thought it an insult. understand their grievance? Because it is the fuse for everything to come. These two men rode the most terrible dragons alive, beasts that could turn a city to ash. They saw themselves now as kingmakers, men who held the war in their hands. And for that, the queen gave them a knight's spurs and a few rocky holdings on someone else's island. To men who had touched that kind of power, it felt like a bone thrown to a dog. And the highborn made it worse with every glance. To Rhaenyra's great lords, the Velaryons, the Celtigars, the proud old blood, these Dragonseeds were weapons, not peers. A blacksmith's bastard might ride the old king's own dragon and still never be seated at the high table among his betters. That contempt did not go unnoticed by the men it was aimed at. Even at her council, the old prejudice was spoken aloud, like a curse laid upon her own new riders. Bastards are treacherous by nature, one voice warned the queen. Betrayal comes as easily to a bastard as loyalty to true-born men. It was meant as caution. It would become prophecy. For there is no surer way to make a man a traitor than to treat him as one before he has done a single thing. And one of those slighted men, the dark-haired giant on the old king's dragon, had already begun to whisper a line that the realm would remember long after he was dead. "The black has no king," said Hugh the Hammer, "and the green has no right." Two of the four could not be trusted. The loyalty of Hugh and Ulf had been bought, not given. And a thing that is bought can always be bought again. Rhaenyra had armed her salvation and her ruin in the same week, and could not yet tell which was which. So we leave the blacks here, stronger than they have been since the war began, and more fragile than they know. For the first time since Rook's Rest, Rhaenyra has dragons in the sky again. More dragon riders, in truth, than any monarch in the long history of her house. The means to break the greens, to lift the strangling blockade, to strike at last toward King's Landing. All of it won out of the fire of the sowing. But she has done something that can never be undone. She has put the most fearsome weapons in the world into the hands of people the realm will never accept, and let those people be insulted for the gift. 2 of her 4 new riders will obey an order when it comes. It simply will not be hers. And there is one last cruelty in it, the quietest of all. Jacaerys, the boy who conceived the sowing, who threw open the dragons of Westeros to fishwives' sons and dockyard bastards, and a brown girl with a sheep, will not live to see the harvest he sowed. He sowed the seeds. He will never see them bloom, and he will never see them rot. Because the next time these new dragons take to the sky, it will be over the narrow throat of water where Blackwater Bay meets the open sea. 90 enemy sails will come out of the dawn mist. A small cog carrying 2 little princes will run straight into the jaws of them. And the realm's golden heir, Jacaerys himself, will fly out to save his brothers and drown in the surf with Myrish quarrels in his back. The seeds Jacaerys sowed will save a kingdom that morning. In the very same hour that kingdom watches him die, I'm Westeros within. If you want to be there when the seeds come to their first terrible blooming, when 4 low-born riders shatter a fleet and a prince drowns in the same black water, subscribe and join me for the next chapter. The Battle of the Gullet. The harvest is coming.